Hi everyone, welcome to the REFSIX weekly vlogcast. We've got a great show in store for you with some guests from, you guessed it, Sussex. So I'm Hassan, I'm your regular co-host. Jon is here with me.
I,
And then today we've got referees Jake Woodman and Joel Lamping. Jake, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Jake Woodman. I'm a level three referee in and about Sussex.
Brilliant. Joel?
Yeah, I'm Joel Lamping. I referee in the Supply League and then do the line in the Eastern League as well.
Brilliant. Thanks for giving up some time. It should be a busy day today because we've got Boris coming out later today to talk about the changes that are happening in England around how we proceed after lockdown finishes. And a lot of the talk is around grassroots game getting back, other things around life getting back to a little bit of normality, but the grassroots game going ahead. But Jake, have you had many games during this period as a level 3 or none at all?
So I've had a handful right at the beginning of the second lockdown, and then I tested positive for COVID-19, so I had to isolate for the last 10 days. So I missed out on 2 games last week.
Oh, crazy.
So hopefully back at it at the end of the week, and then looking forward to.
Feeling okay though? You're absolutely fine, or had some symptoms?
As far as I'm aware, I've not had any symptoms.
Okay, interesting.
It was a bit of a random test for the Women's Super League, and it just so happened that it came out positive. So me and my family have been in isolation for the last 10 days.
Brilliant. So in terms of the Women's Super League, is that a process they're doing for every game now? They're getting every official tested, every player tested?
Yeah, so this has been the process since the beginning of the season. All players are tested, all referees are tested. As far as I'm aware, everyone that goes to the ground has to be tested. So we get a test that's sent to us just 7 days in advance. So if we have a game the following Sunday, the test will turn up at your door on the Saturday before, the week before.
Yep.
It then needs to be done at home, put in the post by Monday. And then the way it works is if the FA contact you, you tested positive. If they don't contact you, you're negative.
Okay.
And then we have to do a 7-day symptom tracker before, just with temperature, if we feel any symptoms, if we come across anyone with COVID.
Interesting. Yeah, a whole different process to pre-match then on the Women's Super League. I guess that's what the elite guys are doing on the Football League as well, no doubt. Brilliant. Yeah, thanks for joining. There was quite a lot that happened over the weekend in terms of the Premier League. I'll just start with the UEFA Man in the Middle documentary. Episode 2 came out this morning. So if you haven't seen that, definitely download the UEFA TV app. It's free to register and you can get to see behind the scenes on episode 2. A great show. A couple more episodes coming over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, in terms of the Premier League, Jon, what incidents were there? There was tons of different VAR incidents. Have you got any that you remember?
Yeah, so we had a overturned penalty in the West Brom Man United game. Conor Gallagher went down under a challenge. I can't remember who by, and a penalty was given. The referee went over to the monitor and overturned it. Similar in the Brighton game, like 4 hours before, Solly March made a tackle and allegedly missed the ball, got the man. Referee gave a penalty, went over to the monitor, saw that Solly March got the ball and then overturned it.
Yeah.
And then again in the Man United game, we had a penalty retake because Sam Johnston was off his line when he saved the ball. So we've had a lot of penalty overturns this week.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't think I've seen many before. And I find them really interesting because of the restart, right? So the restart should be a drop ball to your goalkeeper, to the goalkeeper, right?
Yeah, but I think the referee gave or found a free kick in one of them.
Okay.
So there was a free kick going the other way. So there was a.
Yeah, I just find it interesting. If you give a penalty and then you have to overturn it, technically the play could have continued, right? So you never know what's going to happen. So the drop ball is the one. But we got a lot of emails from, I guess, listeners to the podcast who wanted us to specifically talk about the MLS. So it was a penalty shootout, one of their playoff games between Orlando and I don't know what the other team was. I just remember Nani was playing.
New York City.
Was it New York City? Yes, it was New York City. Yeah. And the final penalty that New York City had, the player stepped up. The goalkeeper saved it, but the goalkeeper came off his line. That would have been the winning penalty, and the team went off to celebrate. But what had happened was the goalkeeper stepped off his line, and the referee ordered a retake. And I don't think it's too clear whether it was the assistant referee or the VAR, or if it was the referee who specifically called it. But it was a correct decision. The goalkeeper came off his line. Very similar to, John, what you mentioned about the goalkeeper at West Brom Man U, where he came off the line. And so here's the interesting... I'll talk through what happened, and then we can talk about the nuances of law and what was correct or not. So first thing was the goalkeeper, for coming off the line, received a yellow card. He was then sent off from the pitch because he'd already received a yellow card during the 90 minutes of play. At that time, then the Orlando team decided to substitute one of their players for a goalkeeper to replace them, to put that goalkeeper in for the remaining penalty kicks. Next, what happened was the official had realized that, oh, wait a minute, the Orlando had actually used all of their substitutions during the game and weren't able to make that substitution. So therefore, ordered the goalkeeper off the pitch, and a outfield player had to go in goal to be the goalkeeper for Orlando. The New York City player retook the penalty, scored. Orlando then went into sudden death. Orlando then, Nani took another penalty and missed it. And then it just kept carrying on. And then the standing goalkeeper actually saved it, and Orlando finally won. So the interesting parts or nuance to law that are interesting are, well, we talked about the West Brom Man U game where the goalkeeper came off the line, made the save, but he didn't receive a yellow card. So why is that? Jake, do you want to go through why that's the case? It's pretty...
So one of the reasons why he didn't receive a yellow card was because the MLS are still currently playing under last year's rules of the game. This is due to them actually starting in February, and it was postponed throughout the COVID pandemic. And so obviously they've only just restarted. So due to that, they've got to carry on with the laws of the game from last season, where the Premier League, because it started in August, or the end of August, beginning of September, they obviously start from this season's laws of the game. So obviously between the two editions, there have been some changes in and around goalkeeper movement and retakes when a goalkeeper or an attacking player infringes to prevent a goal or in order for them to gain an advantage.
Yeah. So yeah, you're spot on. MLS pretty much every season actually follow what we would describe as the old laws when it comes to this time of the year, because their season starts in February, new laws come out June, July, and hence why. So the yellow card was correctly authorized for the goalkeeper of Orlando and correctly not authorized for the West Brom goalkeeper. So even though same day, same incident, different outcome just because of the nuance of the laws. Okay, so next stage was his second yellow card and he received a red card. So Joel, do you want to talk about what would happen this season if that happened?
Yeah, so obviously when it comes to disciplinary action, if the keeper comes off the line in the laws of the game this season, so like I said, the Premier League, it would actually be done as a warning. So therefore, in the MLS, if they were following the laws of this season, the goalkeeper would not have been dismissed and therefore would have been able to continue.
Yeah.
And then had a second opportunity to make a save.
Sure.
Obviously, from the first infringement, as I say, you get a warning from that.
Cool. And then the other additional piece here is that for kicks from the penalty mark, the new laws state that if you received a yellow card during the 90 minutes or during the extra time, that is basically wiped out for kicks from the penalty mark. So what would have happened if that penalty incident happened in this new law would be the kick would have been ordered to be retaken. The goalkeeper would have been warned, but not sent off, right? Or not received a yellow card. Then let's play it out, if he made the same incident again, came off his line, then he would have been given a yellow card. he would have had a yellow card from the 90 minutes, still wouldn't have been sent off because the kicks from the penalty mark reset your yellow card. So actually, he would have been able to get another 2 chances to make that save. So really, really interesting nuance. And I think that kind of shows why the law was changed, was for, this. They've changed the law in terms of how much movement you can have off the pitch as a goalkeeper. But they think it's a bit too harsh to give you, a yellow card for just that movement. So the warning helps, right? And then all of the, there's so many different changes and nuance in law that have happened from last year to this year, and it's all been summed up on this one incident, and it's a pretty good one from a refereeing perspective. The only kind of mistake, John, I think, was the sub, right? Allowing that to happen. How do we prevent that at our level?
Like we said last week, in the couple appointments, check all the competition rules beforehand. What I would do is talk to my assistants. Both teams go off and pick their penalty takers, and you have like 5 or 6 minutes to talk to your assistant. Just go over with everyone and be like, so this is what happens, this is what they can do, this is what they can't do. So you're all in that same mindset. You've all on the same page. And then obviously, if something like that does happen, it shouldn't happen if you have a chat about it beforehand and not just sort of be like, yeah, okay, pens.
Yeah.
Just have a quick chat. And
So
another peace of mind.
Another pre-match, basically, just for that short period of the kicks from the penalty mark.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Jake, do you do that?
I was under the assumption that it was a laws of the game thing rather than a competition rule. That a substitution can't be made throughout penalty kicks. Hence why you always see substitutes be made before the end of the 120 minutes as you go into a penalty kick.
Yeah. So
yeah, but then you're doing the same thing, aren't you? You're having a chat with your assistants about the laws of the game or penalty kicks, because they've changed, haven't they, a couple of times over the last couple of years. So you just have that quick chat. I do it all the time because I forget, because I never really go to 11 needed penalties that often. So you're always double checking like what they can and can't do with each other, not just because of the competition rules, but obviously because of the laws as well.
Yeah, I'm frantically searching IFAB right now, but I believe you can make a substitution in kicks from penalty mark should a player get injured.
Yeah.
And as long as you have, I believe, a substitute able to happen.
Yeah.
And possibly for red cards. I'm not sure about goalkeeper, so I'll frantically check that in the background as we go through the next conversation and chat. But these are very kind of specific niche cases, right? You're getting to a point where, goalkeepers having yellow cards in the game are rare in itself. For it to go to penalties and you have to give another yellow card, it's crazy. But
sorry, mate.
Go on, Joe.
Was there any red cards during the 90 minutes of the game?
Good question. I don't believe so. You're going to ask, how do they even up the penalties, right?
Just adding on to what John was just saying really well, was just obviously another thing you need to be aware of is if you have any... Sorry, my phone now. If you have any dismissals during the match, obviously you need to equal the number for the penalty shootout. So it's another thing, just adding to what Jake and John were just saying, you need to be aware and you need to be on it with your assistants after your 90 minutes that you still have a part to play.
Yeah.
Use them awareness levels, and this is why it's so key to just consistently, go over the laws of the game. A lot of people say, I know this, I know that, but the laws are changing every season, and therefore we need to make sure we're on it and just, staying active and being aware of what changes are made and how we need to act in these scenarios.
So I can actually talk about a penalty, kicks from penalty mark where I made a mistake, and I think this will, everyone knows I'm human, but this will help. So when you're the junior assistant in these shootouts, you stand in the center circle with the rest of the players, right? And in most cases, you wish you were the goal judge because it's something extra to do, right? I'm pretty confident everyone feels that way. You don't want to be stuck in the center circle. And I guess I left my head. This was a youth tournament abroad in Portugal, one of these tournaments abroad, Iber Cup things. And rolling sub, so we didn't really keep track of who was meant to be on the pitch at the end of the game. And anyway, one of the substitute goalkeepers took a penalty, even though he wasn't playing. He didn't play in the game, and for some reason it just didn't clock to me. So it's so important that you as the junior assistant, if you're in that centre circle, you're keeping track. You're that helping hand to the referee to know, okay, is this player walking up from the halfway line eligible to take a penalty kick or not? So that was a mistake that I made a long time ago. It got picked up by only one person, and I got a nice bollocking for that. But definitely something to think about
now, though, haven't you? I bet the same mistake hasn't happened again.
Yeah, I think that's the case with everything we talk about, right? Is anytime you make a mistake, you just remember it. You remember it better than the good decisions. So
did that goalkeeper's team win?
Possibly, yeah. So,
Keep that on quiet.
we'll keep that quiet. But yeah, it was an interesting one that I never thought about, right? But it was my mistake. But also, there was this is where, as officials, you need to take the lead, because at that point I was probably a bit too young, where like all of a sudden the managers, all the players were on the pitch, everyone was on the pitch wanting to be there, and as a young official it can be quite intimidating to tell the parents to go back and to really get to grips with it. And that's one thing I learned from that, is really have to own that kind of role. So yeah, so that was a interesting one from the MLS. Basically I think they were correct in the officials were correct in every sense. They, allowed the goalkeeper to come on, but picked it up before the penalty could be taken. So everyone's happy. I think it just, obviously got some attention for the nuance of the game. So cool.
Going back to what you said, Joel. Sorry, the centre half for Orlando City was sent off.
Oh, was he?
He was sent.
Just doing another little thing.
Yeah. So then all of a sudden, you've got to remember how many players from both teams have been sent off. Who are the nominees for the other team not to take penalties in that shootout? So lots of different things there. Crazy. Those are the ones that are going to be on the laws of the game test next year for sure.
Yeah,
100%.
That happens
cool.
once every 1 million games.
Yeah,
just once the FA should be well away.
Yeah, exactly. So one thing we wanted to talk about this week in terms of our main topic was mass confrontation. So the last few weeks have been talking about pre-match, what you tell your assistants, and we touched on mass confrontation. But what we want to know is kind of what you tell your assistants, but then actually processes for in the game, how you deal with it, whether you're a referee, whether you're an assistant referee, when do you know when to come in or not. So we've heard kind of mine and John's pre-match last few weeks. So in terms of just specifically mass confrontation, Joel, do you want to start with what you tell your assistants?
Yeah. So firstly, obviously, we're working with a majority of different officials at a variety of different ages. There's no rights or wrongs when it comes to instructions for a mass confrontation. The most important thing is obviously getting the correct outcome and getting as much as you can in. And so I would say this is certainly one of the most difficult situations to manage, because whether it's 5 players, whether it's 22 players, okay, it is a real challenge. As I said, there's no rights or wrongs. Me personally, as the man in the middle, I am looking at the player who started the mass con. Okay, was this a foul? Okay, is it something which could have been prevented? Is something I look at later on. And then you just got to look at the player, who's the one who's reacted and who's the ones who are getting involved, because it's a situation where it's so easy to go, because of what's happened, a red card is what's expected a majority of the time, when actually that might not necessarily be from the offence which was committed in the first place, but actually the red card is more going from the reaction. So firstly, what I'd say is, later on, can you prevent that situation in the first place? Was it something where, I thought I'd allow play to continue because I thought, it could have been, couldn't have been. Suddenly you've had a massive challenge come in within the next 15 seconds. And actually you say to yourself in your head, if I gave that foul 15 seconds ago, I've stopped that happening. We've saved ourselves 5 bookings and 2 red cards, just for example. So what I'd say to my assistants personally is up to 5 players, you can leave with me. Okay, I'm confident in myself that I can manage up to 5 players when it comes to a handbags, mini mascon, however we want to word it. Anything after that, I'm wanting my assistants to come onto the field of play. Even the one who's bench side, I understand managers, team officials can be frustrated and heated at the time. They're expecting you to do your job the best you can, and at the same time, the emotions kicking in with them wanting to win. However, my priority is the safety of the players on the field of play, so I want the correct decision there. So we're managing the situation. We're not standing together as officials holding hands. We're standing in a good position. I've worked with officials who have said, I want you to watch the home team, you to watch the away team, and then we'll come together and red's first, yellow second, blah, 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 blah. But to me, I disagree, because if I've asked you to look at blue and I've asked you to look at red, but you've seen a red smack someone, he's going to tell me later on after the game, oh, I did see that, but you told me to do this. Do you know what I mean?
Sure, yeah, that's interesting.
So I tell them to manage it how they want to manage it. Now, this could be from taking boots, tape, numbers, look, hair colour. It's up to you how you manage it. It's what works for you. Some people like to write down. Some people like to just take it in their head. Me personally, I'm taking colour and number. Okay, so blue 7, red 6, just for example. So I'm saying that constantly in my head. Sadly, we have had one this season. I was on the line. I'm not going to name the fixture, but we had a situation where we've got 22 players going for it in a game.
Yeah.
From a red card challenge, in my opinion. And I've had players running at me, giving their opinion in an aggressive way, if you like. And I'm honestly just keeping my eyes on these 2 players, which I had in my head. That's 2 red cards for violent conduct. So I'm looking this way and I'm saying, go away, which isn't what that player wants to hear. And I respect that. However, if this gets the correct outcome when I give the referee the information I have, then I've done my job, in my opinion. Do you know what I mean? So hopefully that gives the listeners an idea of how I would manage a MASCON in my game. Not to say it's right. Obviously, there's more things you could do, less things. But don't do too much. Don't go looking for things. And just because we've had this, it has to be 3 red cards and the game goes the way it does. But just with whatever you see, take your time, be calm, speak to your assistants. Have you got anything for me? And then we can agree, and then obviously make sure you remember the restart as well, which I understand after a MASCON is not the thing you're thinking about as much. But again, you've got to be considering, right, why did we stop the game in the first place? You know what I mean? Hopefully that helps.
Perfect, Joel. Thank you. We can end the podcast there. No, I'm joking. What we'll do, we're going to dive deeper into little parts of that as we go through this conversation. But thanks for that overview. It's great. Jake, in terms of what Joel said, what other things, were there anything different that you would do in a pre-match when you're talking to your assistants? Is there, Joel mentioned some officials, and I think we actually had someone last week say that they say you take one assistant take home, one take away. And actually, Joel's point is very correct. It's like, okay, well, if you've asked me to take away and I see a punch for the home team, do I not say that as the assistant? Blah, blah, blah. So, Jake, talk us through what you say to your assistants from a MASCON specifically.
So my pre-match is very similar to what Joel's is. I kind of focus on around looking after the guys that we've got on the pitch. Very similar to the fact that a handful of players leave me, I'm more than happy to crack on with it. If we're sort of starting to up the numbers up to about 10, then the other assistant that's closest to the incident, I would be looking at you to then make your way into the field of play, pick yourself up a decent position. If we're then starting to talk a good 11 to 22 players, then I'm expecting all 3 of us to be on the pitch. I'm not one of these that goes, I want the senior assistant to stay on the benches, because naturally AR2, as they walk across the field of play, will have a glimpse of what's going on over there. So they will be able to see or have a good idea on what movement other people in the benches might be going for. So, but at the end of that, I'm very similar to Joel, where most importantly, we get it right on the green first. If we can get the guys on the bench as well and there's something going on in there, fantastic. But mainly, I want to make sure that we get the instigator, the retaliator, and also we need to keep an eye out for the guy that runs 30 yards.
Yeah.
And the one that runs 30 yards traditionally is in a different colour shirt and has a big set of gloves on.
Yeah.
So for me, he's the guy that I'm looking out for, because he's very quick to get in and he's also very quick to get out. I've had quite a few experiences. When I was a level 5, I was on the line at a club and there was a massive mass con. And the instigator decided to hide behind the other 11 players on the pitch. And he literally ducked down behind all of them so the referee couldn't pick him out.
Yeah.
And me and the other assistant obviously saw what had happened, and he thought that he'd got away with it because he's hiding, no one can see him, he's done his bit, he's then gone away. To which then he obviously wasn't too happy to be told that actually we see where you are and you're off. But no, I think it's one of those. A mass con's very difficult to try and gauge. I had one early doors this season, and it wasn't a great experience. I think it's one of those things where you can do one of two things. You can either keep it cool, try and stay relaxed and try and control the system, or you run straight in and you start blowing your whistle and you start getting what you could call arsey. And from my experience, it doesn't work. If you go in and you're nice, calm and relaxed about it and you look as if you own the situation, then even if you know deep down that you've got no control over what these 22 players are doing, the perception is to everyone else that actually you've got this under control.
Yeah. Do you have to tell yourself in your head, remind yourself, stay calm, don't it's hard, right? Because sometimes you just want to go in, like you said, like a ball in a china shop, but so
like,
do you speak to yourself in your head?
Yeah. And for me, for example, you see referees that run in and blow the whistle 5, 10, 15 times. For me, if it's not working after 3 or 4, why are you blowing it? There's no need. All you're doing is bringing attention to yourself. If you give it a couple of blows and it's working, great, try and use it. If you give it a couple of blows and they're not interested, stop blowing it.
Yeah.
All it's going to do is give everyone else a headache, and it's not actually a useful tool. And for me, if that's a situation where it's not being a useful tool, the first thing I try and grab hold of as a skipper is in a way, in a home skipper, right, you get your boys out, and we can deal with this. And 9 times out of 10, they're quite happy and go, yeah, not a problem, because they see that you're taking control of the situation that you're in. Even if you're obviously, because there are situations where you cause the mass confrontation because you've not done something or something hasn't.
You've allowed play to continue.
You've allowed play to, So at least then, if you say to a skipper, "I'm trying to get this under control," if they see you as trying to help them, and vice versa, able to pull someone out and they can kind of help you control the situation.
Do you? That works as long as the captain's not the one at the the one that's had the challenge. But yeah, no, that's great points. I think the one I really liked was the assistant opposite the dugouts has probably got a better view than the assistant at the dugouts, right? Because you want both people to be looking forward. You don't want your senior assistant turn around being distracted by what's going on behind. So that's a really interesting point. It's definitely something for people to kind of think about in terms of their instructions. Can you always get everyone that does something in a mass confrontation? Is it possible? Should you?
Good question.
You should, yeah.
You should. So if you see everyone do something, do you think it's correct to give everyone a yellow card?
Yeah. You
think so? Okay.
Well, if they're involved, yeah. But in the grand scheme of things, there's only 3 of you and there's 22 of them.
Yeah.
You're not getting everyone either. There's always going to be someone that gets away with something.
Sure.
We've seen so many mass cons, haven't we, though, where you've got a referee who's, some would use the term card happy, where you've given...
John, you mean?
Yeah.
You've given your reds or you've given your yellows, and then you go and dish out 5 or 6 more. Now, some people might go, yeah, that's fair enough.
You spotted everything. Yeah.
Others would say, was there need? Because there was handbags from 3 players of each team, did you need to have another 6 yellows? Or could you have just had your red and 2 yellows for those players who started off in the first place? So there's no rights or wrongs, as we said before. It just depends on what meets the situation. Obviously, expectations are very high for you at that level. So,
go on, Jake. You wanted to say something?
I think you've also got to look at it. Is it fair?
Mm-hmm.
For example, if you've got 2 yellows for blue and 1 yellow for red, we need to try and find another red caution somewhere, because then it's fair. You've left the situation, everyone's got the same. And for example, for me, if you've got for example, a red player punching a blue player and the blue player standing there with his hand up going, I'm literally not doing anything.
Yeah.
I'm obviously sending off the player that's punching and not doing anything about the guy that's been hit. However, if they're both going at it, it's the fairness of the situation, I think.
Sure.
So that isolating. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So talk us through what you do once you've personally identified what you're going to do. What is the conversation like with your assistants? You bring both of them together? Do you speak to them separately? What's your process around that? Jon, I think you mentioned that you speak to them both together.
Yeah, I mean, if you're all there and all 3 of you are at the incident, like if you all take a step back as a 3, you look as a united front, you talk to them together. Because otherwise what happens is you go over to one and he goes, yeah, red, red, red. And then you go over to another and he goes, yeah, this one, this one, this one. So it's just a little bit more like hassle and hard work walking over to one, walking over to another.
Yeah.
Get it all done. You look like a team. You've made this decision as a team as well. It just looks better.
Okay, cool. Jake, what do you do?
No, 100%. I speak to mine together. But in regards to what I actually want from them is very minimal.
Okay.
First of all, I let them lead the conversation. So I don't want to go to them. I've seen this, and this, and then they go, actually, I don't know what you've seen, but I don't know what I've seen. So I'm going to say the same as what you have.
Sure.
At least if I leave them to start the conversation, I can then add what they've seen to what I've seen.
Yeah.
And then we can go through it quickly together. But mainly, I want to know red 5 kicked, blue 6. That's it. Great. I don't need to know anything else.
Yeah.
That incident there. That sufficed. That told me violent conduct.
And you're not asking them. Yeah, exactly that. You're not asking them for red 5 kicked blue 7, and then you're not asking them to say red card or yellow card, right? You want them to describe the level of the kick, right? If it was a trip or an actual proper kick, and then you make the decision from that information.
Yeah, I've had so many assistants go, oh, number 6 needs to be sent off.
Yeah.
Right? Great. Why? What's he done? Or especially with the whole dissent thing, he's told me to do this. He said this. He said that. Right, that's not the conversation I want to be having with you. It's right, we need to talk and you need to go through the process. Don't jump straight in and go, he needs a caution, he needs a red, because it doesn't solve anything. It doesn't help the referee with the decision that he needs to then make.
Not only that, but it doesn't help you explain it to the players once you've administered it, right? So that's super interesting. Cool. What happens afterwards, right? So mass confrontations can happen at any point during the game. Normally they happen, would you say it's normally based on a bad challenge? Probably 90%. Is there any other reason?
The majority of the time. However, I will confidently say that a mass confrontation can come from a referee being the way they are or the way they are refereeing a match, in my opinion.
Uh-huh.
I think a lot of referees will always go, oh, well, it's down to the players and try and defend themselves. But actually, you've got to take a step back, analyse and go, well, you know what? Actually, the way I've done this game, I've tried to, well, loads of people say referees are arrogant, don't they? It's what we're known to be. We're all arrogant so-and-sos. Well, actually, if you just referee the game properly, create a careful relationship with players and manage the game, you're probably going to prevent these sorts of situations. I agree with you. It can come mainly from a big decision, a game-changing decision, a key match decision, a penalty or a red card or a serious offence, if you like. But it can actually come from a throw-in, believe it or not, because I'm not saying you give a throw-in, suddenly players kick off. However, if you give a throw-in which was the wrong way and 90% of the people in the ground think that, suddenly the game's gone from here to here.
Up a bit, yeah.
The volumes increase. Then the challenges start coming in and you're saying to yourself, hang on, we've just had a lovely game of football the last hour. What's happened?
Yeah.
And that's where, in my opinion, the best referees will go, you know what, that throw-in where everyone had a go at me and I stuck with it. I've gone, that's where it escalated.
So, Joel, is this something that you, like, you say some referees, has this happened in your history? Is this something you've learned from your own game, that maybe a mass confrontations happened where you think back and you were like, well, maybe I could have dealt with that slightly better? I feel like it's probably happened to me.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if it's created a mask or actually had a real mask on about it. I mean, I've certainly had games where I've lost control, and I will 100% admit that. And I'll admit it because it's helped me be the referee I am today, where I've given a decision, people have argued it, and actually the team who I've awarded it, they've stayed silent because they know I'm wrong and they've benefited from it.
Yeah.
And I've gone, no, it's this, it's that. And I've been a bit, probably arrogant, if you like.
Sure.
And I think, actually, you look back now and you think, just use your common sense. People are laughing at you. You've given the decision. And then in the last few seasons, if it's happened, I've blown the whistle, gone, sorry, lads, gone the other way. And you get a little bit of crap in the ear and someone will go, you know what, mate, did you have a drink last night? And you have a bit of banter with them.
Yeah.
But actually, you go, yeah, I'll take that one on the chin. And suddenly, you've got that respect because you've admitted mistake. You've got a certain amount of respect from players, and you've prevented the game going up here again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that, so I'm glad you mentioned that. Is like, can you preempt that temperature going up by just holding your hand up, say, sorry, I might have made a mistake there. Luckily, it's only a throw-in at the halfway line, so let's get on with it, kind of thing. You probably don't want to be putting your hand up on a penalty decision or a red card decision.
No, that one, take it on the chin. Give a penalty, unless you're incorrect in law, which is something we, or I personally would speak to my assistants. Unless I'm incorrect in law, I take it on the chin if a penalty is given and people
possibly not.
Yeah,
sure. Jake, would you agree with that? It's mainly is there anything we're missing there? Is there any other reason why mass confrontation? I guess maybe if a team's losing pretty badly, that will bring up their temperature a little bit. I'm just trying to think, if we're referees and we're analysing our game and we're trying to figure out what might happen in the next 20 minutes, what are the signs that we might be thinking about looking for that a mass confrontation might be occurring, and how do we nip that in the bud?
I mean, it doesn't always have to be between a home player and an away player. It can be within its own camp. You can have two home players, two away players. I mean, remember the Lee Bowyer incident when he was at Newcastle.
Yeah, cheers, guys. I'm a Newcastle fan. We have to mention this.
That could have come together, and okay, it was only a handful of players that got involved, but
that happens more frequently.
Lower pitches, precisely.
Yeah.
When someone says something that maybe they shouldn't have said, or someone says something that someone else doesn't really like, or tells them an honest opinion on something, and then obviously temperature rises within their own band. And those are the difficult ones, because you just got to keep an eye on the guys that are ticking. I think it's one of those, you just got to be aware of the guys that might cause an issue at some stage. And a lot of that comes down to player knowledge.
Yeah.
The more you referee a team, the more you will know within that team who are the guys you can work with, who are the guys will say something, what guys are the ticking time bomb. And for example, there's loads of guys that I've refereed on the Sussex County League that that they are just a ticking time bomb before they either have a pop at one of their own players or one of the oppositions, and that it's kind of going to be circled around them in that direction.
Cool. All right, so we've talked about what you talk about before the game with the assistants. You talk about process around mass confrontation and maybe tools to identify when it's going to happen. What about afterwards? So let's leave it. Let's end the podcast on talking about how you deal with after a mass confrontation when you're about to restart. Your assistant or you figured out the right way to restart the game. Do you referee differently from there on out? Let's say you've had a couple of red cards. What changes? What do you do for the next 5 minutes? Does anything happen?
Kill it.
Kill it completely.
I kill it.
So what does that mean for the like a new referee or a level 7 referee when they go out with a level 5, level 4, level 3, and they say after this we're going to kill it? What does kill it mean?
Bring the temperature right down.
Okay.
Because you've had that big hot spot and you just want to bring the tempo down, because there's that stage where everyone's still got their wits about them and they're still a little bit hyped up because of what's just happened. So if you can bring the temperature down on the game, it makes your life a lot easier. So what you'll find a lot of referees giving free kicks that probably aren't really free kicks.
Yeah.
But especially in non-dangerous positions, such as a defender going towards his own 18-yard line and into the corner, into his own corners,
yep.
Whether that's in front of the assistant or over the far side, you'll find even the smallest of nudges or whatever, just give them, because it will just allow the game to settle in and flow. And then if the big challenge comes in the 60th minute, by the 70th minute or 65th minute, you've had 5 minutes of giving then you can start to let it flow a little bit more. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then if you need to pull it back in, you can do so. So it's all about being able to just kind of let it flow and not let the temperature get as high as what it was when the first challenge came in.
Yeah. Brilliant. Joe, anything different?
No, very similar. Just in that situation after a mass con, it's going to be a majority of soft fouls, is the term used a lot of the time by players and clubs. And, oh, ref, come on, mate, let us play. And then if you let them play, then it builds up and you have a red card. So just, give the soft ones, ease the game off as you go on. People talk about the analogy of walking the dog to the park. When you walk in, leave the house, it's always trying to pull away from you all the time, and you've got to keep it close to you. So by doing that, you're giving lots of little fouls, and then as you get closer to the park and the game eases off, you can give the dog a bit more leeway, give it a bit more of an area to run around. So it's exactly like that. And then when the game starts heating up and the dog starts taking the mick out of you, and you bring it back in and you start again.
I love that analogy, and I think that's a great analogy to end on. I love analogies. That's perfect. Walking the dog to the park and letting him go, and then when it's time to go home, just put him back on it again. Yeah, it's perfect.
Or be like me, just get a cat and then you don't have to worry about
it. Perfect. Jake, Joel, thank you so much for your time this week. John, thanks for setting it all up and figuring out all of the content for this week. We would love to invite you back in the future. So definitely give us a shout when you're free. To all those listening, hopefully that helped. Firstly, we talked about the MLS incident, the kicks from a penalty mark, all of the kind of nuances around the laws there. So hopefully you learned something, or hopefully we were able to clear up some of those incidents in your head. And then we've talked about mass confrontation. So our process is that it's not the right answer. We're just telling you what we do, what we look to put in place when we identify mass confrontation, how we handle it. So if you've learned from that, that's all we can hope for. Take one of those things away. And that's great, and you can add that to your game. Please do give us a shout if you have any questions. Feel free to email us, feel free to give us a tweet or send us a message on Facebook or Instagram. But for this week, thank you very much for listening, and we will see you again next week. Thanks, guys, for coming on.
Cheers, guys.
No problem.